Welcome back. Before we get into today's cheating, lies, and public humiliation in high definition, please do me a quick favor. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, every time somebody's bad decisions come back wearing Karma's favorite shoes, you'll have a front row seat. Let's get into it. My wife Angela cheated on me with my coworker, then stood in our kitchen in East Point, Georgia, looked me dead in my face, and said the coldest thing I ever heard. The crazy part is you basically trained him for me. She said it like she was announcing the weather. No tears, no shame, no shaking voice. Just that flat, mean calm people use when they want you to understand they've been done loving you for a long time. I was still holding a grocery bag with catfish, hot sauce, and sweet tea in it. Here's how it happened. My name is Noah, and back then I was 36, black, steady, and so routine people joke you could set a watch by me. I lived in Atlanta, worked in Midtown for a logistics company, and had been married to Angela for 11 years. She was beautiful in that dangerous, effortless way that made people straighten up when she entered a room. Deep brown skin, quick smile, sharp tongue, expensive taste on a working-class budget. We met young, built our life from scratch, and for a long time I thought surviving hard years together meant we were unbreakable. That was my first mistake. Endurance and safety are not always the same thing. Before everything got ugly, there was real love in our story. We had our own language, our own jokes, our own little Atlanta map of memories. There was the Kroger on Cascade where she pretended every peach was a science project. The Beltline walk where she made fun of my slow jog and called it respectful cardio. The Waffle House near downtown where she once stole my bacon, denied it with a straight face, then almost choked laughing when I found it folded inside her napkin. I loved making her laugh. I love how she would grab my hand in parking lots like the world had to go through her first. Angela made ordinary things feel dressed up. If we only had enough money for takeout and a red box night, she'd dim the lights, put on hoop earrings, and call it date night with ambition. Once, on a weekend trip to Savannah, we got rained out of everything we planned and ended up eating pralines in the car while thunder rolled over the riverfront. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "Even broke, we still know how to be soft with each other." I held on to that sentence for years. Funny how some memories turn into heirlooms long after the house burns down. The cracks started small, the way rot starts under paint. Angela got quieter at home, but louder online. She took longer to answer texts, cared more about angles than moments, and started speaking about our marriage like it was a starter apartment she'd outgrown. If I asked what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing," with that blade hidden in velvet tone. If I tried harder, she'd say I was smothering her. If I backed off, she said I was emotionally lazy. There was no right answer anymore. I didn't know then that some people ask questions only to punish whatever answer you give. Around that same time, my company hired Darius for our team in Midtown. Black man, early 30s, clean beard, good shoes, always smelling like expensive cologne and trouble. He was charming in the way some men are when they've learned that confidence can pass for substance. Everybody liked him fast. He called older women at work Ms. and called me Big Bro by the end of his second week. I took that seriously. I'd had mentors when I was coming up, and I believed in reaching back. So I showed him systems, processes, clients, shortcuts, office politics, all the things nobody writes down but everybody needs. Darius had one habit I should have clocked sooner. He was always asking personal questions disguised as harmless guy talk. What kind of flowers actually work? What restaurants feel romantic without looking like you Googled best date spots? How can you tell when a woman is mad but pretending she's not? What music says you're thoughtful without trying too hard? I thought he was talking about some woman he was seeing in Decatur or Buckhead. I laughed and gave him answers like an older cousin. I told him peonies were risky but lilies were safe. I said women remembered details more than money. I told him playlists matter more than men think. Looking back, the sickest part is how specific it got. Darius once asked what kind of dessert a woman would remember after dinner, and I told him Angela loved warm bread pudding more than fancy cake because it felt honest. He asked what phrase makes a woman feel seen after an argument, and I told him, "I hear the hurt underneath what you're saying." He nodded like he was taking notes for a final exam. I handed that man pieces of my marriage one conversation at a time, and he used them like lockpicks. Some betrayals aren't sudden. They're assembled slowly, in broad daylight, while you help. Meanwhile, home started feeling like borrowed space. Angela guarded her phone with a casualness so forced it was almost theatrical. She'd smile down at the screen, and then look up at me like I was interrupting her happiness. She began making jokes about my predictability around other people, and everybody laughed because she was funny and I was easy to laugh at. Noah would schedule a spontaneous moment, she said once at a cookout in College Park, and people cracked up while I stood there holding a paper plate and pretending that didn't sting. Small humiliations teach you how lonely a relationship can get. I still kept trying. That's the humiliating part people don't talk about enough. Betrayal doesn't begin the day you find out. It starts in the months where you're performing CPR on something the other person already buried. I brought home her favorite Thai food from a place off Ponce. I fixed the loose cabinet in the kitchen. I suggested we take another weekend trip, maybe Nashville or New Orleans, just to breathe somewhere different. She said she was tired, then posted brunch pictures with her friends the next morning. I bought flowers anyway. When somebody wants out, your kindness starts looking desperate to them. The actual clue was ridiculous. Not lipstick, not perfume, not a mysterious earring. A playlist. Angela was cooking one Saturday morning, swaying around in one of my old t-shirts, and I heard a sequence of songs come through her speaker that stopped me cold. It wasn't just the music. It was the order. I had built that exact playlist for Darius a month earlier when he said he wanted something smooth for a serious conversation. I remember joking that if Anita Baker didn't help him, the Lord might not either. Angela hummed along, smiling to herself, and something inside me went very still. Once suspicion gets in, every detail starts testifying. I noticed Angela wearing a perfume I hadn't bought. I noticed Darius suddenly knew her favorite tequila. I noticed how she said, "People grow apart out of nowhere," like she was rehearsing lines. I checked nothing at first because I didn't want to become the kind of husband who hunted for proof. But truth is a smell once it gets close. One evening, while Angela showered, her phone lit up on the bed with a preview message. "You still smiling about last night?" No name. Just a heart emoji and enough disrespect to change my life. I wish I could tell you I handled the discovery with elegance. I did not. My hand shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The message thread was a graveyard with my name on it. Hotel confirmations in Buckhead. Inside jokes about my habits. Screenshots of things I'd said. Lines I had literally taught him. Repeated back to my wife like he invented tenderness. There was even a picture of them at a rooftop bar I once recommended. My chest felt hollow. Not broken. Hollow. Broken implies something remained in pieces. Hollow is when everything you thought was inside you turns out to be gone. When Angela came out of the shower, wrapped in steam and a towel, I was sitting on the edge of the bed with her phone in my hand and my whole face probably looking like bad news. She didn't gasp. She didn't ask what I saw. She didn't even rush. She just closed the bathroom door gently and said, "So now you know." That calm almost made me sicker than the cheating. I asked how long. She told me 7 months. I asked why him. She shrugged and said, "Because he paid attention." Then she dropped the line about me basically training him. I think that was the moment love finally left my body. Darius was wise, because he acted like manhood had something to do with stealing from another man. I confronted him in the parking deck on Monday before work. He leaned against his car like he'd been expecting it, hands in his pockets. No fee, no guilt, just smug. He said, "I didn't take anything that wasn't already loose." That sentence nearly sent me someplace dark. I didn't swing, mostly because jail would have been the second thing I lost that week. He told me Angela was happy with him. Then he adjusted his cuff and walked into the building like I was the inconvenience. After that, the humiliation widened. Angela moved through the house like a tenant waiting on paperwork. She stayed out late, took calls on the porch, and made no effort to hide where she was going. Her mother called to tell me marriage takes 2 people and I must have neglected her. One cousin suggested I man up and stop acting blindsided. A mutual friend said women don't just cheat for no reason, which is a polished way of blaming the victim while sounding wise. The worst part was how quickly people rushed to explain cruelty once it belonged to someone charming. Pain becomes negotiable when the liar is likable. I unraveled quietly. I started eating lunch in my car because I couldn't trust my face inside the office. I lost 15 pounds without trying. Music irritated me. Sleep stopped being rest and turned into quick blackouts between long stretches of staring at the ceiling. My barber on Old National looked at me one Saturday and said, "Brother, your fate is not strong enough to carry this sadness." I laughed so hard I surprised myself, then almost cried in the chair. That's how grief moves sometimes. One joke, one crack, one tiny release. It doesn't heal you. It just proves you're still alive. People like neat stories about betrayal. But the truth is the middle gets ugly and boring. Bills still show up. Meetings still happen. Trash still needs to go out. I would come home, see Angela's heels by the couch, and feel like a guest in my own life. I heard her laughing in the next room one night and recognized Darius's voice on speaker. She didn't lower it, didn't step outside, didn't respect me enough to perform remorse. That almost made it easier. Once a person shows you they can watch you bleed without flinching, you stop negotiating with hope. You start making plans. My first good decision was silence. Not weakness. Strategy. I got a divorce lawyer in Decatur named Denise Coleman who wore sensible suits and looked at my evidence like she'd seen every flavor of selfishness Atlanta had to offer. She asked calm questions, made sharp notes, and never once fed me revenge fantasies. She just said, "Let the facts do the heavy lifting." I gave her everything. Hotel receipts, texts, timestamps, bank statements, proof of adultery, proof of spending, proof of Angela's timeline. My anger wanted drama. Denise wanted documentation. Documentation, it turns out, is much more dangerous to liars than screaming ever will be. My second good decision was realizing how much of Darius's professional shine came from me. I had been cleaning up his mistakes for nearly a year. Reworking reports he rushed. Fixing numbers he guessed at. Smoothing over client calls where he overpromised and underdelivered. I told myself I was mentoring him. What I was really doing was subsidizing his image with my labor. Once I saw that clearly, I stopped. No sabotage. No false accusations. No traps. I simply let his work belong to him. A funny thing happens when you stop carrying a man who thinks he beat you. Gravity finally gets a turn. Angela noticed the shift before Darius did. "You're too quiet," she said one night, standing in the doorway while I packed a small overnight bag to stay with my cousin in Stone Mountain for a few days. I told her peace had gotten expensive, and I couldn't afford to keep spending it inside that house. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. That was Angela's gift. She could set the fire, watch you burn, then critique your reaction to the smoke. I left anyway. My cousin Reggie greeted me with a long hug, a six-pack of ginger beer, and the helpful words, "Brother, welcome to the branch office of survival." Reggie probably saved me more than he knows. He kept things from getting too heavy all at once. If I got too quiet, he'd hand me a broom and say, "Depression can ride with us, but it's paying rent." He made me go on walks at Arabia Mountain. He forced me to eat. He roasted my old anniversary outfits like they were evidence in a fashion crime. "You was getting cheated on in this?" he asked, holding up a striped button-down I thought looked respectable. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. Grief hates motion and sunlight. Reggie gave me both. The romantic part of my life didn't die with Angela, but it changed shape. I started remembering love as something bigger than possession. I thought about my mother braiding my sister's hair on Sunday mornings in Birmingham when we were kids. I thought about my father bringing her peach nahi from the corner store for no reason. I thought about softness as a discipline, not a performance. Angela had made me feel foolish for being steady, but steadiness is not weakness. It's a gift in the right hands. That realization didn't erase my hurt. It just stopped me from confusing her rejection with my worth. Then the practical consequences started hitting. Denise filed. Angela, who had strutted around the house talking like she was about to collect a reward for leaving me, learned quickly that documented adultery has a way of ruining certain expectations in Georgia. The alimony she'd casually mentioned over the phone to a friend, gone. The fantasy that she could spend recklessly and still leave clean, gone too. She didn't apologize. She got meaner. Said I was trying to punish her because I couldn't keep her. But facts are stubborn. She had spent marriage money on affair nights, and Denise laid that out with surgical calm. At work, Darius's troubles arrived like buses. Late, then all at once. A client flagged inconsistent numbers on an account I used to review. Another asked why promised deliverables kept slipping. Finance started examining expense reports more closely because the department was cutting costs. Suddenly, those staycase tabs, rides, and suspiciously frequent client dinners in Buckhead didn't look like networking anymore. They looked like what they were, sloppy misuse hidden under borrowed competence. HR called him in twice in 1 week. He came back from one meeting pale and tight-jawed, but still arrogant. Men like him mistake consequences for temporary bad luck right up until the floor disappears. Angela moved in with him before the floor gave way. Of course she did. Pride loves momentum. She took clothes, a lamp she always said I had no taste to pick, and a little framed photo from Savannah where we looked rain-soaked and young. She left the wedding album in the hall closet like old tax papers. I signed the last separation documents in silence and went back to work. 2 days later, Darius was terminated. Not suspended. Not warned. Fired. Misuse of company funds, performance issues, documentation gaps. Enough paper to make denial look childish. I didn't have to do anything. I had already done it by stepping back. The comic part was almost too neat, except it was real. Darius's apartment in Midtown was priced for a man with a salary, not a man with swagger. Without the job, his lease, car note, and fake luxury lifestyle started choking him fast. Angela had hitched herself to what she thought was an upgrade, only to discover she had moved from one stable life into somebody else's collapsing costume. She still didn't apologize. She told people I was bitter and vindictive, even though all I had done was stop protecting lies. Last I heard, they were fighting in a smaller place near Marietta, blaming everybody but themselves. My own turn came quietly, exactly how I needed it to. Months before all this, I had turned down an internal transfer to Houston because Angela said Texas felt too far from real life. After the divorce, the offer reopened. Better pay, better title, more room to breathe. I took it. No speeches, no social media announcement. I packed my books, my records, my cast iron skillet, and drove west with the windows down and my phone on Do Not Disturb. When I crossed into Texas, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt lighter. Sometimes healing is not fireworks. Sometimes it is simply the first full breath after a long drowning. Houston gave me anonymity, which turned out to be holy. I rented a townhome in a quiet neighborhood, learned the back roads, found a barbershop, and rebuilt my days one ordinary decision at a time. I sent money home so my mother could stop stressing over her medical bills. I started cooking again. I slept. I laughed without forcing it. Nearly a year later, I met a woman named Camille at a bookstore in 3rd Ward after we both reached for the same James Baldwin collection. She smiled, let me have the book, then told me my manners looked suspiciously old-fashioned. It was the first flirtation that felt gentle instead of dangerous. Camille isn't the point, and neither is Angela's downfall. The point is what I learned too late and still in time. Never hand your value to people who only know how to use what's good in you against you. Loyalty is beautiful, but without boundaries it becomes a weapon in the wrong hands. I thought revenge meant ruining them. It didn't. My perfect revenge was surviving without turning cruel, moving in silence, and letting truth collect the debt my anger wanted to chase. Angela and Darius got each other. I got my peace back, and in the end, that was the only win that actually felt like love. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.